This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Oh my God!
This is the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 49. On today's show, Raw is struggling. We're going to talk about it. Some details on Rey Mysterio and possibly a new contract. Also, Smackdown and Raw. We're going to review both of those. With me, as always, he's the one, he's the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Can't wait to record this podcast with you, sir. There's an opportunity for me to meet and interview some wrestlers on the indie scene this weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Going out to the Championship Wrestling League this Saturday, a little bit before the doors open. Hoping for an opportunity to interview maybe the likes of James Ellsworth, Big Cass, MVP, some of the bigwigs. My advocate is maybe involved in this operation, and he showed some love to one of his prize clients.
He's hooking you up, huh?
Yeah, it's going to be great. I can't wait to go out there, me and Kenny. I offered you an invite, but you're busy. So I'm going out there with the microphone, hopefully take some photos, and hopefully cutting my chops, interviewing some wrestlers on the wrestling scene. I think it'll be fun.
That's awesome.
And it kind
What time's the show at?
The show's at 7.
Okay.
Doors open a couple hours earlier, but we're going to go before the doors open and have a chat, maybe 5 minutes with a couple of the guys, and just start the process of learning how to interview wrestlers. I think it's going to be great.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, it's going to be great. My advocate hooked me up.
Your advocate is the guy to talk to about all of that. I wonder if they'll let you run the ropes. You think they'll let you run the ropes?
Oh, dude, that'd be great video, huh?
That would be great video.
You could see me blowing up after 3 rings.
I was going to say, you would hit the ropes twice and you'd just be dying.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting. Well, let's kick this thing off with Raw.
Can't wait.
Let's kick this off here. So Raw opened up. It's a solid little bit, and it's building towards this Dean Ambrose heel turn. I like it a lot. I think it's awesome. I think it's something really, really good. The Shield's in the ring, and they're mocking Baron Corbin. When Baron Corbin comes out to answer these taunts, he's got Braun Strowman, Dolph Ziggler, and Drew McIntyre with him. I think they did a really nice job here of planting seeds of doubt that set up towards the main event. When you watch Raw, you have to realize what Raw does. Same thing with SmackDown. It's very formulaic with what WWE does. They have their opening promo, which then circles back to their main event, and it's how they open and close their shows. It's just what it is. It drives us both nuts because usually your opening promo is 15 to 20 minutes long. In this case, and I think in SmackDown's case this week, they were both very good opening promos. They were different. The one on Raw was much more serious than the one on SmackDown. I thought this did a really good job planting those seeds of doubt, like I said, and I think it did a really good job building towards what would become the main event.
I'm fascinated because everybody's talking about it. Should Dean Ambrose turn heel? And by introducing the question, maybe is Dean Ambrose going to turn heel? I think they played on it, and I do think I really like the way that they're handling it because it kind of makes you want to pay attention. Like, okay, is some move? It makes you want to pay attention to Dean Ambrose, how are his actions going to take, and things like that. So I did agree with you in that they planted the seed of doubt in what are the real intentions of Dean Ambrose.
What did you make of throughout the actual episode of Raw? There were different cuts in different scenes of things taking place in the back. There was one with Seth Rollins where he was talking to Drew McIntyre, and it seemed almost like he was inviting Drew McIntyre to join the Shield. What did you make of that?
The seed of doubt is everybody's wondering now, okay, and the marks are really thinking, okay, it's time for Drew McIntyre to leave Dolph Ziggler and become a main event guy. But I do think that they're teasing a breakup, but I don't think that Drew McIntyre is going to join any faction. I think that a guy like that is a main event guy by himself.
Standalone.
Yeah, I just think that if they lose the matchup, if Dolph and Drew McIntyre lose, then Drew will just be angry because his notion is, hey, you got to step up. And if Dolph gets pinned maybe by one of the Shield members, then I think Drew will get highly upset and destroy Dolph Ziggler, and then he'll take off as his own individual star towards the main event, towards the guy he needs to be fighting, Roman Reigns.
Yeah, see, I see it the same way. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to happen just like that. There was also a backstage segment where Dolph Ziggler is, or not Dolph Ziggler, where Drew McIntyre is talking to Dean Ambrose and basically telling him that he could be so much more and he could be better if he left the Shield. And I can see that happening. I don't know if it's going to happen at Super Showdown. It might. But I think in the end, this was the original plan that WWE wanted to do before Dean Ambrose got hurt. They wanted Dean Ambrose to be the one to turn. I mean, you're not going to turn Roman Reigns. They've already come out. They've already said, we're not turning Roman Reigns no matter what. It's just not happening. Seth Rollins turned. Then he came back after he was injured, and he tried to come back as a heel. It was a colossal flop. It didn't work. They ended up turning him face immediately. So you're not going to turn him. CrossFit Jesus is going to stay CrossFit Jesus, and he's going to be a face. So who's the one guy who could possibly turn heel out of the group of in the Shield? And it's Dean Ambrose. And Dean Ambrose is crazy, more serious, lunatic, I'm going to cut your liver out and I'm going to cook it over a fire mentality right now, I think plays really well with a heel turn. Moving on. The Riot Squad beat Natalya and the Bella Twins. That wasn't the story here. There was a lot of meat and taters with Brie Bella kicking Liv Morgan in the face, not once but twice, and knocking her out. The question here, should Brie Bella be allowed to wrestle right now? Brie Bella has botched numerous moves, almost breaking her own neck. She now kicked Liv Morgan in the face twice, knocking her out in the middle of a match. Liv Morgan may have a concussion. She's undergoing testing. At this point, Liv Morgan is basically, Brie Bella apologized to Liv Morgan, and it seems like Liv Morgan's okay with this, but there is some backstage heat on Brie with the rest of the Riot Squad. They're very upset. Brie Bella, I don't believe, should be in the ring right now. She's not. She's just, there's too much ring rust. I mean, she's making stupid mistakes that are hurting wrestlers, and she's almost hurt herself numerous times. What do you think?
I was highly disappointed in the way this entire thing shook out. Even though Liv Morgan wanted to be a trooper and wanted to fight, somebody should be watching.
She climbed back in the ring for a suplex.
With a concussion. Somebody should be monitoring this at all times. And this is not 1992. This is 2018. If she goes limp for a moment, somebody should be paying attention, definitely in the back, and calling a halt to the match, or not making it so that Liv Morgan can go out there and continue. To your question regarding Brie Bella, I think she does need some time away from the ring to figure out how to be a better wrestler. But at the same time, part of it was also Liv Morgan's fault, in that you got to be kind of more upright to accept the kicks. And so her head was down, and so she got planted. So part of it was both of their faults, but right away she went limp. And so that was definitely the wrong reaction by the WWE to allow the match to continue and to allow Liv Morgan to take more bumps, because you could do some serious damage. All in all, bad on everybody involved in that whole situation. Brie Bella has to be safer, and Liv Morgan definitely has to obviously do more to protect herself. But the WWE is responsible for the health and safety of these athletes. And if something like that happens, there has to be a protocol in place to make sure that the athlete does not go back in. Because similar to the guys, hey, guys go back out to the ring or go back out to the football field with severe head injuries. But it's now shown that you could do serious damage, even life-threatening stuff, if you do that kind of stuff. This is not a situation where she's trying to fake an injury. She was legitimately concussed. Somebody should have protected Liv Morgan.
I think the most egregious part of all of it, not just her climbing back in the ring or WWE officials allowing her to climb back into the ring for a triple suplex spot, it was after she's knocked out, Brie then gets on top of her and drags her to the corner by her neck. Like, you just hurt her. She's knocked out cold. You don't know what damage could be done to her head, and now you're going to grab her by it and drag her by it? Look, bad on Brie Bella. I put all this squarely on Brie Bella, and then she goes on Twitter and she gives this, I really feel like it was a half-assed apology. Very frustrating for me, watching Brie Bella wrestle, as well as Nikki. I don't think they need to be in the picture right now. I don't understand why they're here. You know, they are part of the group that helped get the women to this spot, but you don't need to be here anymore. You don't come around enough, and when you do, you screw things up. Just go sit in the corner. Nobody needs to see you. It's okay. Go over there. I'm over all of it. Now, you like Raw a little bit more than me. At this point, I thought it was just a bunch of crap that kind of filled out the remaining, I don't know, what was it? It was like the next 2 hours of wrestling. In this time period, is there anything that you really liked or stood out to you?
You know, I really like Elias and Bobby Lashley. I like what they're doing. I like the fact that they're telling a good story, good matches in the ring. I like Finn Balor. I like the way they're utilizing him. I like Baron Corbin. I like the fact that Stephanie came back on her birthday. I felt like the show was, what they're trying to do is move along the storylines for the big event going on in Australia. So obviously they're going to move along in that direction. But what really highlighted it for me was the fact that the main event was really awesome and that the Shield beat the Authors of Pain and Corbin. And like I said, we've all wanted the Authors of Pain to have a real match, and they showed, wow, in that situation, you have a match that really, really got a lot of people's attention. But at the same time, prior to that, you weren't impressed with the match that the Revival had? I feel like it was the best match that they had. Now, it was sloppy at the end, which I think a lot of people kind of noticed, okay, maybe not the best execution of the moves and maybe a little bit rushed to get to the end. But the Revival match was, I thought, a candidate for match of the week.
Out of this Raw television watching experience, it was that match.
It was a coming out party.
And it was the main event. Those were the two matches that helped save Raw, because Raw, I thought, was a colossal waste. The opening segment, I thought, was very good. You then transitioned into, I believe it was the Finn Balor Jinder Mahal match.
Yeah.
And then you had the total debacle with Ruby Riott, or not with Ruby, but with Liv Morgan and the Bellas. At that point, I was kind of like, this is just, it's a hot mess, right? You do get that Revival match, and that does sit there and inject some life back into the show. And I thought that was very good. I thought that was exceptional.
Post Raw, there were reports that Vince McMahon was definitely paying attention to how over some of the moves that the Revival were making, and that he was super impressed, which likely would indicate a push for the Revival. If you can go in there versus Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler and put on a show like that, and you get a reaction from the crowd, most people feel like, hey, the Revival in NXT were the predominant tag team, and it has been a little bit of a slow transition to Raw, but in the work that they've done with the big dogs, with Roman Reigns, with Braun Strowman now, and with the top tag team, I think, on Raw, Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre, they held their own, and they were over. The crowd liked it, and I liked it as well.
It was really good, because you got to see WWE give two, it was basically a matchup of two heels. You got to give them some time, and then you got to see the crowd kind of pick and choose which heel they wanted to win, and you got to see the crowd come back around. This was a really good setup. I thought this was a very good match, but it just happened to fall in between crap on one side, crap on the other side. It is, for me, the way Raw set up is you really had two really, really good matches, right?
Yeah.
Like really, really good matches.
But top of the line matches.
They were the only two matches that I considered for match of the week. Just these two.
Okay.
It was the match with the Revival, and it was the match with the Shield versus AOP and Baron Corbin. And to me, match of the week goes to the Shield and AOP. And that's just because it has a grander story that is going on with it. Like, you need to watch this because there is something else that's going to happen here in the very near future, and this is part of it. This is laying those seeds. This is laying that foundation. It is now building off of what just took place almost 3 hours ago. So I thought the match with AOP and the Shield gets my match of the week. I thought it was very, very good. I thought the way this whole thing set up, I thought it was really, really good from the beginning to the very end of this. As a show, I thought Raw was very underwhelming.
Okay, now we go over to SmackDown, and we have a new television show. It's called Truth TV, which the fans seem to really love. But, I kind of felt like it went a little too long. They have a great guest in Daniel Bryan. But
he was cracking up. He was doing everything. Did you ever watch Saturday Night Live anymore?
Yeah.
So when they do they do the news section.
Yeah.
Do you notice how the guys whoever sits in that chair, they're always dying laughing? Like it's not good like it used to, because they used to be able to keep a straight face. He could not keep a straight face to save his life.
Well, when R-Truth gets up,
was dying
with
bro.
Carmella dancing, the jokes.
They had a 7-second dance off.
It was good. I liked it, but
I thought it was very entertaining. The first 15 minutes was very entertaining. I thought it was totally pointless, but very entertaining.
What do you think about Carmella's new hairstyle?
I like it. I think she's better looking as a blonde, but she's now a face, right? So she had to delineate her heel persona from her face persona. I liked it. I like her and R-Truth. I think they play off each other very, very well. I think they're very, very funny. R-Truth has some of the best one-liners in this whole segment. When Miz comes out, because Miz ends up coming out, and Miz is upset because his show got stolen by R-Truth, which is now Truth TV instead of Miz TV. And R-Truth is like, look, I beat you last week. You didn't have a title. If you would have had a title, I'd have took that instead of just taking your TV show. It was great. This was really good writing. This was well done. It was well put together, and it built towards a match, and it helped move a storyline along with Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan didn't have to wrestle in here, but it helped move that Miz and Daniel Bryan storyline along. I thought it was well done. I thought it was executed perfectly.
Now, it did go on a little long because then you have R-Truth and The Miz have a match.
It was like a 20-minute match, too. So you got like 35 minutes of R-Truth.
Yeah, it's a little bit much.
A little over the top.
But it's nice to see a renaissance of R-Truth, but yeah, it's a little bit over the top. I felt like the whole segment should have been 20 minutes tops. You could have made Truth TV 10 minutes and the match 10 minutes, and you can get maybe one other wrestler in there that people actually want to see. Overall, thumbs up. It was fun.
The crowd was behind Truth.
I always love seeing The Miz and the way he handles a match, and I liked how Daniel Bryan in color commentary was putting over the fact that Miz is now can wrestle, put together moves, and handle business. And I like the fact that the announcers were emphasizing that, hey, the Miz has beaten you in the last couple pay-per-views, and the emphasis now is whoever wins the match between the Miz and Daniel Bryan gets a chance for an opportunity, maybe, versus AJ Styles, which I'm hoping it's going to be Daniel Bryan.
The underlying story here is will Daniel Bryan cheat to beat The Miz?
Yes.
That is the underlying
Seed
story
planted.
here.
Yes.
Right. So let's see how this gets cultivated and what happens going forward. Rusev calls out Aiden English for answers as to what he did to him last week. I thought this was pretty decent as well. It had a little bit of a Jerry Springer twist in it when Aiden asks about or brings up the night in Milwaukee. Nobody's really sure what he's alluding to here. You have Rusev sitting there basically scratching his head. You've got Lana like, I don't know what he's talking about here. I thought this was well done. Aiden English later on says in a backstage segment that he's going to be video proof next week. What did you make of all this? Did you like how this set up? Because I think you're starting to see right now that Aiden English is going to be the heel and Rusev is now a face. I like we talked about last week. You have this rub for Aiden English. He got to work with Rusev. Rusev got built up astronomically. WWE, I think, dropped the ball with Rusev in Rusev Day. But Rusev is now, he's now able to go off on his own and become the face, while Aiden English has now elevated his stock, and he can go off on his own and be the heel, and now you can have the conflict between these two. I thought this was well done.
Yeah, very well done. I think Aiden English is a believable heel. I'm not sure what like you said, the Milwaukee incident, I don't know if they're going to maybe tie in Lana as maybe, doing something nefarious with Aiden English and things like that. I don't want it to go down that road. I just want to see.
What about this? So a few years ago, it was The Rock and Lana, and The Rock was talking to Rusev, and I think he alluded to maybe sleeping with Lana.
Right.
I don't hope that's not it.
Yeah, exactly for me. I hope that's not it. I just want to see Rusev get over on Aiden English. I'm interested now in the feud, and I think that's the goal of the intended segment.
Yes.
So good job by them.
Yeah, I thought it was well done. Any idea what WWE's doing at Nakamura? Look, he won the U.S. title a while ago. He's had no major story. He just had these random angles with random guys. Few weeks ago, actually last week, Randy Orton was in the truck and he was framing something up and basically looked like he had a chubby when he was grabbing the video producer's face in the background, zooming in on something. Randy Orton has been around Nakamura a lot lately.
Yeah.
A lot. Do you think Randy Orton is Nakamura's next challenger? And if so, do you want Randy Orton to beat Nakamura for the title? Because I don't want Randy Orton with a title.
But here's the thing, too. You look at Ty Dillinger. He gets the win via DQ, but you look at it and you go, you're trying to elevate him, and he's desperate for an opportunity. But
I thought he did a good job.
I thought it was okay, but all in all, I'm not really thinking I like the idea of Randy Orton being the next challenger. I think Shinsuke needs something a little bit bigger.
Bigger, right?
It's really interesting how Shinsuke kind of is a mid-carder when you kind of feel like if utilized properly, kind of like Becky Lynch, he could be a main event person. Like you went down the road of him being a heel, and then you cooled him off right away. So it's kind of like this medium-paced push that you think, why don't you just go full throttle, make him go, like show up in some of the segments with AJ Styles, show up across the show and just be the guy that's like, hey, this is my show, I'm going to do whatever the heck I want. Not kind of meddling around with the Ty Dillinger and things like that. And similarly, you got these two stars from overseas in Asuka and Shinsuke Nakamura that aren't being utilized. You put Shinsuke and Naomi in a match, and you have Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville basically for the entire match destroy Asuka, and then you give her the victory. But I feel like no person in WWE is underutilized more than Asuka.
Yeah.
She's a star.
She is.
And she's in feuds that are not prime time, and it's like you rose her up to the ranks, and then you cooled her way down, and you could have just kept her at a medium hot pace, right? A medium hot pace, especially when you move her to a new brand.
If you go back and you look at what happened with Asuka,
They're not being used right.
She comes in and she's undefeated and she's crushing. She's just mowing through the entire roster, right? She faces Charlotte. She loses to Charlotte, so Charlotte takes her win streak for really no apparent reason, because then Charlotte goes on hiatus. Charlotte ends up coming back. She gets the title. Then it goes to Becky Lynch, and the whole time you have Asuka just floundering. Asuka and Nakamura, WWE has no idea what to do with them, and they're stars. They are stars, and they have no clue what to do with them. At this point, they put Asuka in comedy angles where they've got Naomi talking to her about chop suey and teriyaki, and you've got Nakamura basically wrestling Ty Dillinger, which, no offense to Ty Dillinger, I like him a lot, but I feel like Ty Dillinger is a mid-card guy. Nakamura is a superstar. I'm not sure what we're doing here.
And then we get to the turd of the week. And I think when you ask me, like, oh, you're not really impressed with SmackDown, why? Well, when you put a woman like Lana in the ring and you put her in with the champion, Becky Lynch, who was featured earlier in a promo where, in a situation where Charlotte was doing an interview and a backstage photo stuff, and all of a sudden Becky Lynch comes in, and that was great. That was perfect. That was the best way to use Becky Lynch. Then you put her in a match with Lana, and Lana's a clown in the ring. It was messy. It didn't look right. Wasn't coordinated. And I said to myself, if you're going to have a women's revolution, you can't have the age-old matchup with a woman who can't wrestle and put her in with the champion. It looked bad. It didn't do nothing for anything. And it just made me go, wow, you really, after a year and a half, have not found a way to put together a match, especially when you're called up against Becky Lynch. You got to step your game up. You can't have a match like that. And so when you put a turd on television like that, it brings down the whole show. And that's why I give it no chance of being a show that was worthy of winning the week. A turd match, all the way around. It was turd.
While I agree with you that it wasn't the best match, this was one of Lana's best matches.
Oh, really? Right? Oh, no.
This was not one of Lana's best matches. Lana's had better matches than this. It wasn't a very good match. I agree with you. But for Lana, this was a decent match. And I think that was because of who she was in the ring with. You're right, though. Lana got in way too much offense. Yeah. Becky Lynch should have killed her and just moved on. This should have been one of those squash matches. Becky Lynch is upset. She comes in. Like, Becky Lynch and Lana had a great backstage promo where Becky Lynch just sat there and just shitted all over Lana. Just cut her to pieces. You get into the ring, Becky Lynch needs to annihilate her. There's no reason for Lana to get that much work in on Becky Lynch. So you're right. The way the match was put together was very, very poor. Lana's very, very poor in the ring. Becky Lynch was the best thing in this match, and I'm going to continue to put Becky Lynch on our roster and on her rundowns because I absolutely love Becky Lynch. I was just looking at her Twitter. She's phenomenal. Okay? I don't care what anybody says. I have a crush on her. She's great. It's what it is. Anyways, moving on. What do you think about the Samoa Joe, AJ Styles contract signing? So AJ's in the ring, and Paige is out there, and Paige looks great, by the way. She's got a great butt. Just putting it out there. Anyway, she's in the ring, and she's talking to everybody, and I love her English accent. And AJ comes out, and he's sitting there. They're waiting for Joe. No Joe. Paige is, and here's Samoa Joe. No Joe. So AJ gets on the mic and is like, Joe's not coming. I don't know what you're waiting for. He's a coward. He's probably going to attack me from behind. Next thing you know, Joe's on the big screen, and Joe happens to be at AJ Styles' house. What'd you think of this?
I thought that AJ Styles did a great job of trying to, in real time, interact with the guy that was obviously pre-taped. It was so pre-taped, it was obvious it wasn't live, but I thought it was great in that, obviously, Samoa Joe is at AJ Styles' house. He's like, well, you don't keep your phone, so you would know that I'm here. You can't do anything to call. And they built it up, and you got AJ going, no, pleading and things like that. Now, it's kind of more of the same of what we've seen, but I like the drama aspect of it, of having Samoa Joe kind of creep in from the back, talking about the white picket fence. He then makes his way up to the door, and he's like, making the claims as to why this is happening. And then he goes up to the doorbell, rings it, and end scene, show ends. And I thought, okay, obviously, I'm not more or less invested in the feud. I want to see it. I'm very happy that the showdown's going to be a no DQ, no count out. There's going to be a finisher. But in terms of the feud, like we've asked for more vignettes, a different kind of storytelling. I just would have applied it to a different feud. This feud needs like physicality every week. So This one needed a face-to-face, maybe a different kind of situation where you had a couple wrestlers on each side, and you had the typical quote unquote plug and play feud where they both kind of fight the guys to get to each other, and then you end the show. So all in all, it was okay, not great.
I thought the real star of this was Samoa Joe, and you're right, it was a pre-tape bit. And I thought he did an exceptional job. AJ Styles seemed like a fish out of water in this. He seemed uncomfortable doing it. His begging and his pleading seemed weak. It didn't seem believable to me. I was like, it just kind of fell flat for me. You're right. This is a feud where it needs to be physical every single week. Whether it's AJ Styles losing it and trying to annihilate Joe, or Joe sneak attacking AJ, there needs to be that physical conflict. I like how they're doing the storyline with Joe and AJ's family. I get it. I like it. There are other things you could do where you could have Joe messing with AJ's mind, like writing stuff on his house, writing stuff on his car, putting stuff in his wife's car or in the mailbox. There's a million and one other things you could do, but I need them to be physical during the week, and you just didn't get that. So myself, I thought Raw had 2 really good matches, and it had 1 decent promo that led back to the main event. I felt like a lot of the stuff in the middle was just kind of junk. Whereas with SmackDown, you didn't get any one thing that was like, wow, that was awesome. But I thought the way SmackDown ended felt really, really flat. I thought it opened hot, especially with the R-Truth segment. I thought that was well done. I thought it was well put together. I thought the thing with Rusev was really, really good. I'm still kind of confused with Nakamura. SmackDown kind of lost me in that second hour, and it just kind of led to the finish. Yeah. So you know what? I guess you're right. Like, looking back on all this, I guess Raw does win this week because
the quality matches take precedent, and they didn't really have like a turd of a match. Obviously, I think that Brie Bella definitely
that was a total turd.
Yeah, it's a bad move, but when you hurt somebody, but it is in the course of a really significant spot there, and in that kind of a match, you have a higher risk for injury when you're kicking someone. But Lana, I just felt like the match was so bad that it took away from the show. So I gave the week to Raw.
Nobody died.
And nobody got hurt.
Nobody died, unlike in Raw. Anyways.
Concussion.
You want some news and notes?
I do. So we give the week to Raw this week?
Yeah.
Raw gets the victory this week. Yes, hit me with some news and notes.
So Rey Mysterio signs a 2-year deal with WWE. Now, it's being reported that there is an opt-out clause at the 18-month mark. So Rey Mysterio, what he was negotiating was he wanted to only sign for 18 months. He didn't want to sign a full 2-year deal. So what WWE did was they met him kind of in the middle. Said, here, we're going to have you sign a 2-year deal. If you want, at the 18-month mark, you can give notice and you can leave. So it's kind of where they worked it to.
That's not bad.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. Does he come back for SmackDown 1000, or is he on the SmackDown brand? You have to remember, Rey Mysterio for a long time was the superstar on SmackDown. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. Rumor is that Stone Cold will ref the Undertaker versus Triple H match at Super Showdown. Another rumor is Starrcade may be streamed on WWE Network.
I think they should. Why not? More content when you have a show with the caliber of Starrcade. I know it's looked at as a glorified house show, but periodically, once every 3 months, air one of the big-time shows from Madison Square Garden. They've done it in the past. Starrcade, great name recognition. Go ahead, do it.
Monday Night Raw posted its lowest ratings in the modern era with an average of 2.35 million viewers this past Monday. So Raw started pretty hot, and then it fizzled in hours 2 and hour 3.
Is there an opposing event that takes place around 9 o'clock?
There's a lot going on.
Yes.
So, predominantly football. But it just goes to show you where Raw's ratings are. I'll be honest with you, Raw was kind of an afterthought for me this week. I watched it, but I was flipping back and forth.
When you have the Shield, you have kind of, the evolvement of a show that most people really don't care about. I mean, the Super Showdown, it's a show from Australia. I think the fans, by and large, don't buy into stuff like that. And so I think that with a show like that, especially with the game going on, the Monday Night Football game, holy cow, did you see the tight end pimp slap the guy?
Oh, it was great.
It was back and forth, a lot of scoring. And so we watched the Monday Night Football game, and Raw was just an afterthought.
Yeah, it's the same deal, man. It's just... Look,
they got to step their game up if you want to draw attention, especially from Monday Night Football, especially a game where there's offense. And that once the tight end from Pittsburgh slammed that guy down, everyone was hyped and they wanted to see more of it.
You know what I need? I need more creative and more intelligent writing for Raw. I don't feel like we get that. I feel like a lot of what you get is it's half-baked ideas, and you're like, here, go out there and perform. And the performer's like, okay. And they're not allowed to be creative. And that's what you get.
If somebody only has 10 minutes to watch one match, what was the Jock's WWE match of the week?
It was the Shield AOP match. That's the one I'm going to give it to. Again, like I said before, there is There's so much there that is going to build towards something else, and you can almost feel it. You can almost taste it and touch it. That's how palpable it is. So that is the one, because, like I said, they did a great job opening the show with it, and they did a better job ending the show with it, and it just builds to it.
For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. You've listened to the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. If anything at all that you've heard you want to react to, feel free to leave a voicemail, 248-579-8686. Message Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Check out next week's show where we may have audio content from some indie wrestlers that you may have heard. Thank you so much. You've just heard the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.